The desert sun had barely climbed above the rocky ridges when the cowboy, Luke Marston, rode into the dusty frontier town of Dry Creek, his boots worn, hat bent, and eyes shadowed with the weight of too many miles. Luke wasn't a drifter by choice. Life had carved that into him. He was a man running from a past he never asked for and chasing a future he wasn't sure existed. He had only one goal now: find work, make enough money to build a small ranch somewhere quiet, and start over. Dry Creek looked like the kind of place where change could happen, or where a man could disappear entirely. And sometimes those two things were the same. He tied his horse outside the largest building in town, a two-story establishment with a faded wooden sign that read, Haller and Sons, General Goods, Livestock, Contract Work. Except there were no sons, and everyone knew it. There was only one man at the top, Jedediah Haller, the richest, toughest, and most influential figure for miles. If a man wanted work, Jedediah either gave it to him or made sure he never got it anywhere else. Luke stepped into the building, dust following him like a second shadow. Behind the counter stood Haller himself, big, square-jawed, gray hair slicked back, eyes sharp enough to slice through steel. "You're Marston," Haller said without looking up from his ledger. "I heard you were riding this way." Luke wasn't surprised. News traveled faster than horses in this territory. "I'm looking for work," Luke said. "Good work. Honest work." Haller closed the ledger, lifting his eyes slowly, studying Luke like he was appraising a horse. "You're a good worker, Marston," he said. "Everybody says so. But I don't hire men who run from trouble." "I'm not running from anything," Luke replied calmly. "Just looking for a fresh start." Haller smirked. "A fresh start always comes with a price." With that, the store door swung open, and one of Haller's clerks whispered something into his ear. Haller stiffened, nodded, and dismissed the clerk. Then he looked at Luke with an expression somewhere between exhaustion and calculation. "You want work?" "I got work for you," he said. "But it comes with a condition." Luke's jaw tightened. "What kind of condition?" Haller stepped around the counter, lowering his voice as if the walls might gossip. "My daughter needs a husband." Luke blinked. The request hit him so hard he almost laughed, thinking it was a joke. But Haller's serious tone froze the smile before it could form. "Your daughter?" Haller nodded. "I don't have long left in this world, and my estate, my name. World and my estate, my name, needs a man who can protect it. A man who's strong, loyal, clean in the heart." Luke shifted uncomfortably. "And why ask me?" "Because everyone else in this town has either betrayed me, failed me, or disappointed me," Haller said. "You're new blood, unattached, skilled, and people say you've got a good soul. That's enough for me." Luke felt heat creeping up the back of his neck. "Sir, I don't even know her." "She's kind, loyal, a good girl," Haller said quickly, but then his eyes drifted away, as if remembering something unpleasant. "But she's not." "Easy on the eyes," Luke swallowed. Now it made more sense. No suitors, no proposals, no interested bachelors. Haller's reputation could bully men into submission, but it couldn't force them to marry someone they didn't want. "So what are you offering?" Luke asked carefully. Haller didn't blink. "Marry my daughter or leave my town. And if you leave, every employer in 100 miles will hear that Luke Marston isn't worth hiring." It was a threat cloaked as a choice. Luke felt anger rise, but life had taught him that anger was a luxury. Survival was a necessity. "I don't marry strangers," Luke said firmly. "Then meet her," Haller replied. "But the offer stays the same." Luke followed Haller upstairs, the wooden steps creaking under their weight. Haller stopped in front of a door draped with a curtain of beads, turned to Luke and said, "She's shy, sensitive. She wears a veil for reasons that ain't your concern yet. Treat her with respect." Luke nodded. Haller knocked twice, soft but commanding. "Lydia," he called. "I brought someone to meet you." The door opened slightly, and a young woman stepped out, her face covered completely by a long white veil made of lace and beads. Her hair was braided neatly and her posture was gentle, almost timid. Luke couldn't see her face at all. Behind the veil she seemed almost like a ghost. She clutched her hands together nervously. "Hello," she whispered. Her voice was soft, melodic, unexpectedly beautiful. Luke felt something stir. Pity? Curiosity? Maybe both. Lydia lifted her head slightly. "Father said you're kind," she said quietly. "That's all I ever wanted." Luke tried to speak, but the words tangled in his throat. Her presence was strange yet oddly calming. Still, the situation felt impossible. She was covered completely, hiding something she clearly feared showing. Haller stepped between them. "The wedding happens tonight," he announced. Luke's eyes widened. "Tonight? If you agree," Haller said. "You'll have land, a home, livestock, and security. Everything you ever wanted. All. I ask is your loyalty, and that you treat Lydia right." Lydia bowed her head. "I know I'm not beautiful," she whispered through the veil. Luke felt a sharp ache in his chest. Not for himself, but for her. He took a deep breath, sensing that walking away meant losing everything, but accepting meant walking into a life built on a mystery. He didn't. Something fragile, hope. Haller nodded once, satisfied. "Good," he said. "At sunset, you'll lift her veil." Luke didn't know why those words unsettled him so deeply, but he would soon find out, because when the veil finally rose, everything would change. The sun slipped behind the crimson horizon, bathing Dry Creek in a burning gold glow as the townsfolk gathered outside Haller's estate. Luke stood stiffly beside Lydia, who remained quiet, her veil glimmering in the fading light. Behind them, murmurs rose from the crowd, curiosity, disbelief, even laughter. No one refused a wedding invitation when the groom was a stranger, and the bride the most mysterious woman in town. Haller stood proudly at the front, the officiant ready beside him. Luke's heart pounded like gunshots echoing in empty canyons. He wasn't a man easily rattled, but something about this ceremony felt unreal, like he was standing inside someone else's life. Lydia was trembling very slightly. He could feel it even without touching her. The moment the vows were exchanged, Haller didn't waste a second. "Lift the veil," he ordered softly, though it carried the weight of thunder. The crowd leaned in. Luke raised his hand slowly, swallowing the knot in his throat. His fingers brushed the delicate fabric, and for a moment Lydia flinched but then relaxed as if accepting her fate. Luke gently lifted the veil. Gasps erupted, sharp, surprised, confused. Luke froze. What he saw wasn't what he expected. She was stunning. Not just pretty, strikingly, breathtakingly beautiful, with deep expressive eyes, soft features, and a quiet glow that radiated from within. She wasn't ugly at all. She was the opposite. Luke stood there stunned into silence, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. Lydia looked terrified, tears forming in her eyes as if she feared rejection even now. "I know," she whispered shakily. "My father told me. Told everyone that I was ugly. It kept men away. It kept me safe." Luke stared at her, his voice somewhere lost between confusion and disbelief. "Why would he?" Lydia looked down. "Because when I was younger, men tried to court me only for my father's fortune. He didn't trust anyone. He thought hiding me behind ugliness was protection." She hesitated, swallowing hard. "And I believed him." Luke felt something heavy settle in his chest, not anger, not pity, but a deep ache for what this girl had lived through. Haller stepped forward, his expression unexpectedly soft. "I did what I had to," he said. "Men wanted my money, not my daughter. I needed someone who saw beyond appearances, even if he couldn't see her face." Luke turned to Haller, a storm building behind his eyes. "You lied to her," he said quietly. "You made her believe she was something she's not." "I protected her," Haller thundered. "You call it protection," Luke said, "but all she ever needed was honesty." Lydia trembled, tears slipping down her cheeks. The crowd watched in complete silence. Luke gently wiped her tears with his thumb, surprising even himself. "Lydia," he said softly, "you're not what he said you were. You've been hiding your whole life because someone else was afraid. But I'm not running." Lydia's breath caught. "You don't hate me?" "Hate you?" Luke almost laughed. "I've never been more surprised in my life. But not in a bad way." A faint smile trembled on her lips, fragile, hopeful. The kind that could break a man's heart if he wasn't careful. Haller watched them, his jaw tight. But something in his eyes softened, a father realizing he couldn't control fate anymore. Then from the crowd, someone shouted, "So the cowboy's getting the fortune after all." Laughter erupted, but Luke stepped forward. "I didn't marry for money," he said loudly. "I married because I gave my word. And now that I've seen the truth, I'll stand by it." Lydia's eyes widened. "You mean it?" Luke nodded slowly. "A man's honor is the only thing he truly owns, and I don't break my word." Something warm washed over Lydia's expression, relief, gratitude. and emotions she'd never dared express before. The crowd dispersed slowly, whispering among themselves, while Luke and Lydia stood together under the twilight sky. Haller approached them, his voice quieter than ever. "Take care of her, Marston," he said. "She deserves more than I ever gave her." Luke nodded. "I will." When Haller walked away, Lydia exhaled deeply. "I never thought anyone would look at me without the veil," she said. Luke smiled faintly. "I'm glad I did." And for the first time in her life, Lydia believed it. As the moon rose above Dry Creek, Luke Marston realized he hadn't just accepted a marriage, he had stepped into a destiny he didn't know he needed, and Lydia discovered something even more powerful. Sometimes, the veil that hides you is the very thing that keeps you from seeing your own worth. Their story had only begun, but already, the shock of that unveiled truth had changed both their lives forever.